Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I want to talk to you about a few subjects today. One of them is the latest updates on the ground in Gaza. Second thing I want to talk to you about is the protests of the ultra-religious community in Israel refusing conscription. The third thing I wanted to talk to you about is the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank fighting resistance movements in the West Bank. The fourth thing that I want to talk to you about is the systematic starvation and the recent massacre. And the final thing I want to talk to you about is a report in the Wall Street Journal regarding the Egyptian airdrop aid in Gaza. I'm going to start off with the resistance and Gaza. We've had obviously multiple resistance movements declaring actions against Israel today. The two primary ones really were Saraya al-Quds, the armed wing of the PIJ. Al-Qassam obviously also had activity. But the one that I wanted to highlight more is Salah ad-Din brigades, Alwiyat al-Nasr Salah ad-Din. They launched missiles on areas in Israel surrounding Gaza. And I wanted to highlight that for a very important reason. You see, the resistance doesn't need to launch rockets at Israel at the moment because they're in defense mode at the moment. They're doing it very, very effectively. They're humiliating the Israeli army. That's why you constantly see massacres, because Israel punishes the civilians and takes revenge on the civilians instead of taking back at the resistance, because they are not capable. They're a failed army. Why did they target these areas? In particular, they targeted Kisufim and Ra'im. They are targeting these areas that were attacked on the 7th of October, that many Israelis were evacuated from and still haven't returned to. The settlers that were evacuated from these areas, they cost the state a lot of money. All of them are in hotels at the state's expense for almost half a year now, and they're saying that they are not going back because the situation doesn't allow them to, although the country is trying to push them to return, giving them all sorts of incentives. Some of them permanently left those areas. You have approximately 150,000 from the areas surrounding Gaza and approximately 90,000 from the Lebanese borders and the areas witnessing clashes between Hezbollah and Israel. They are sending a message that these places are still not safe. So no matter how far Israel is going to go to try and convince them to go back, they're saying that we're not only in defense mode, we have capability. Now, obviously, they still have capacity to strike other areas. However, the strategy is defensive and they're doing it very effectively, notwithstanding these attacks as and when necessary to send Israel the relevant messages. This is coming at the same time that we're seeing a systematic starvation through this genocide on the civilians of Gaza. Today, yet another massacre. 8 people killed, dozens injured after Israel had strikes on aid trucks in Deir al-Balah. This is the 4th attack on aid and people getting aid in the last 3 days only. We've had dozens of these attacks since the beginning. Israel systematically does these things. They are very calculated. They are very deliberate. Anyone who thinks otherwise is delusional. They do this deliberately to instill as much fear and hopelessness in people as much as possible, even the people who are most in need, seeking refuge and seeking basic bread, basic food, basic hygiene, sometimes things to do with hygiene, basic stuff, but primarily food. Imagine how evil this entity is. It's coming at the same time that we also had other reports. Before I go to them, again, I highlight Israel does that also deliberately to punish the civilians in return for its failure with the Palestinian resistance. All of their active genocide in Gaza is a revenge against the population. It's the cowardly act of an evil-rooted country. This is exactly what it is. We have more, unfortunately, bad news when it comes to babies dying because of a lack of nutrition. We've had the 15th baby dying because of lack of nutrition in Kamal Udwan hospital, the same hospital that I published images about a couple of months ago on my community tab, that Israel not only attacked, they went in with their bulldozers on patients' bodies in that hospital, saying that it's serving whoever that's serving. All lies, obviously. There was the last functioning pharmacy in that area. They completely destroyed it, and you have infants now dying because of malnutrition in this hospital. Again, this is something deliberate, systematic, calculated very carefully from Israel, and anyone who thinks otherwise is delusional. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. So they're having clashes now with the small resistance hubs in Jenin. It's not only in Jenin, it's also in Tubas, in Tul Karam as well. But the highlight was Jenin. They were after a man called Qais Saadi. They attempted to arrest him, and they had a gunfire exchange between them and the resistance groups there. He was wounded, but they couldn't get to him. The same man, Israel tried to capture him not long ago, but they failed because he wasn't in the place that Israel raided. And now you have the Palestinian Authority doing Israel's work. I mean, what is this really? How can we explain this? All of this that Gaza's going through, and the only thing you're worried about is saving Israel and protecting Israel from people who are attacking it. Really, Israel stormed his house not long ago. They didn't find him. And Hamas, the PIJ, and Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, which is the armed wing of Fatah, by the way, all of them are asking the Palestinian Authority to stop these acts because they're not conducting actions against them. They're conducting actions against the oppressive occupation. This is simultaneously coming with a report that Riyad al-Maliki, who's the foreign minister for the Palestinian Authority, he made some reports when he was in Turkey, saying that we will be the only legit authority in Gaza after the war. So he's not talking about the technocratic government we've been speaking about and hearing about. He's saying that we will be the only legit government and authority in Gaza. Again, are you signaling that you're going on top of this Israeli genocide to go and rule back Gaza? Who is this benefiting exactly, these statements? The Palestinian Authority, you have this obviously history of feud between you and Hamas, and you refused to accept the democratic elections when they happened in 2006. And now that we have reconciliation talks and a potential of a technocratic government working for the people, not that I'm promoting it, but you know that you have these talks, something that will function hopefully for the Palestinian people, at least in the West Bank and Gaza. And you have this man saying that we will be the only legit authority in Gaza. It just highlights really where people's minds are and how their words are actually translated into actions with these attacks against the small resistance hubs. You're not talking about like massive logistic support or strategic weapons or whatever in the West Bank, although they're causing Israel a lot of headache. And to be fair, when it reaches the level where the Palestinian Authority needs to intervene to catch resistance fighters, it's because Israel is unable to do it. It's incapable, and it obviously faced a lot of resistance in the West Bank, and it used measures that it hasn't used since the early 2000s, post the 7th of October. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is We have the conscription in Israel. There's the proposals and talks from the prime minister, from the defense minister, from multiple political parties in Israel, the government, about conscription laws being implemented to include the Haredi, which is the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community in Israel that is traditionally exempt from conscription and serving in the Israeli army. These people are not buying it. So I regularly also post images on my community tab about Israeli forces beating them, arresting them, humiliating them. And now they shut a main road in Israel, multiple actually. One of these main roads, it was shut for 3 hours with them protesting and saying we are refusing the conscription laws and we will not accept them. This is putting more pressure on the government. They're obviously stating that they have an urgent need for 7,500 soldiers. Most of their army is now either dead, wounded, or disabled. You have a lack of willingness to fight in the army, and they can't make up the numbers, so they're going to this community, and we have even more voices from the people, from the normal population in Israel, saying they're refusing conscription, so they're facing a lot of trouble with regards to that. And the final thing that I want to talk to you about is part of a report from the Wall Street Journal with regards to the airdrop aid in Gaza, particularly from Egypt. So Egypt had a couple of airdrops in coordination with UAE. You obviously had Jordan, France, and the US as well. However, Israel is obviously saying that it's only in a condition that you have to seek our approval before you do such airdrop aid. And they threatened not to give approval, but Egypt, according to that report, is resisting. Egypt is threatening to invade the airspace, even without Israeli approval, invade the airspace that Israel claims, obviously, and not invade it for military attack purposes, but for airdrop purposes. However, Israel isn't accepting that. What does that mean? Well, it could mean a couple of things. Number one, Israeli suspicion from the countries that are doing the airdrops, although they might be close in relationship, but they have a particular tension with Egypt because this article was in relation to Egypt. They know that if Egypt is over the Israeli airspace, that they could be using this airspace to find out other things to do with where the soldiers are, where the military is. Are they planning the move? Not that they're not having this information from satellites, for example. However, when it comes to airplanes, you have additional surveillance, obviously additional intelligence that you can get, and Israel is probably worried about that. But according to this report, Egypt is not happy with this. These were the main things that I want to talk to you about in this video. In my live stream tonight at 9:30 that I do regularly for my members and subscribers, I open the space for all of you to join in, share your thoughts and comments, and share some of them with our viewers. I will be talking about primarily Benny Gantz and his visit to the United States that wasn't coordinated with Netanyahu, how Netanyahu punished him, and what that could lead to. Obviously, I will be opening up the space for the subscribers and members of my channel to contribute, share their thoughts, to use this platform really as well to make their voices heard too. And I will hopefully see you soon in the next video. Take care.